Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
The cracks in the economy are getting bigger. It's about to break apart. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Yesterday, I uploaded an interview with Lynette Zhang. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. Or you can go to x22report.com. Just scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side. You can play the video on the site. Or you can go to newssentinel.com. Same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, and you can play the video there. Or go to Steemit. You can go to steemit.com/@X22Report. You can play the video on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like the situation with the global economy, it is getting worse and worse day by day. Now, I know the corporate media, they're not out there really reporting on this, but if we start to look at all the different countries and we start to put all the pieces together, we're starting to realize that, yeah, things aren't going as well, and they're turning up in all different areas. For instance, there was a report that was released that 3 million savers in Britain, well, they might not get their pensions. It's a 50-50 chance of receiving the payouts they were promised. And this was an overall study of the pension system there. And this special report on the rising pension crisis, well, it shows that, yes, they are on schedule, that they're not going to get their pensions. 50% of the people. It's a 50-50 chance here. And this is a problem. And we're not just seeing this out coming in the UK. We're also seeing it here in the United States. And here in the United States, the economy is just getting worse and worse and worse. Things are not getting better. I know a lot of people think they are getting better. And of course, the corporate media and the government is out there telling you that, oh, GDP, it's coming in at 3%. That these are all manipulated numbers. Coming from a watchdog, they looked at the overall economy and they noticed that 43% of adults are struggling to make ends meet. And I wouldn't be surprised if this number was even higher than this. And when I say, they're having troubles making ends meet, what they're finding, and this is coming from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is that this survey shows that they can't make their more than monthly bills. More than 1/3 said they experienced a financial hardship within the past year. Not in the past 8 years, just in the past year. 43%. They're running out of food. They don't have enough for rent or their mortgage. They don't have enough for medical expenses because the full-time jobs are disappearing. They're being replaced by these low-paying part-time jobs. And these people, and we know that there's many of us out there, we're working 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. Now remember, the government counts each one of these jobs as a full-time job. This is how they manipulate a lot of these numbers. And what we're seeing is that the economy is actually sliding into a downward trend, and there is nothing they can do to make it better. Now, they can manipulate numbers. They can tell you that GDP is 3%, the stock market's continually going up. They can even tell you that unemployment is at 2%, but these numbers are meaningless at the end of the day. I mean, let's look at durable goods, for instance. It collapsed in July. I mean, there was no airplane orders or things like that, and the durable goods are, washers, dryers, and things like that. Normal things that people go out and purchase because a person's not going out and buying an airplane. Well, it looks like this month, durable goods shot up. It bounced up. Why? Because it was on aircraft orders. It wasn't on washers and dryers and the big ticket items. It was non-defense aircraft orders, which jumped 44.8% month on month. This is why durable goods bounce back. But when we look at whatever the everyday person is doing, this didn't move. Actually, it declined. Now let's go to housing. Now think about it. The interest rates are the lowest that we've ever seen. I mean, they are very, very low. You would think everyone would be going out and getting a mortgage and buying a home, especially during the summer months. This is the popular season to purchase a home. This summer is a complete disaster. And we've seen other summers where they've been declining, and we've reached this summer where it's a complete disaster. Now, we knew this was going to happen. Now, of course, they're telling us that prices are rising, that there's not many houses out there for people to choose. But if you go on Zillow and you go into a neighborhood, you see tons of houses that are for sale. Now, pending home sales, they have dropped. They tumbled 2.6%. New construction tumbled. Pending homes tumbled. They're all declining. Now, Lawrence Yun, the National Association, the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, he is saying, now we just have to listen to him and what he says because a lot of it's wrong. I mean, back in the 2008 crisis, he told us that the housing problem would be over in the spring of 2009, and he was completely wrong. He thought it was going to bounce back in the winter of 2008. Had no idea what was really going on here. But he's saying that this summer's terribly low supply levels have officially drained all of the housing market's momentum, and the housing market has stalled. Now, the housing market has stalled because people don't have jobs. People don't feel comfortable in their current work situation. They're not saving the money. 43% of the people can't even make ends meet. And they're trying to convince us that it's because there's just no houses on the market. Now, remember how they created this fantasy. They had hedge funds, investment companies, foreign buyers. They all got cheap money, very, very low interest rates. In some cases, 0%. They went out and they bought homes in droves, thousands upon thousands upon thousands. And they held on to them. And they tried to rent them, but they were told not to sell them. Banks didn't foreclose on homes. Foreign buyers came in, like the Chinese. They started to purchase homes. And down in Miami and Florida, you had the South Americans coming in and buying a lot of these condos that they were building. And remember, this is all speculative. We know what happened in 2008. Well, that whole thing just completely crashed on itself. And what we're seeing right now is the same exact thing happening. The Chinese money is drying up. The real American, well, they can't go out and purchase a home, and things are not going well. Actually, Sam Zell, who usually appears on like CNBC and all these, saying that, listen, the retail real estate market is like a falling knife. And he's talking about the commercial real estate out there, and we know there's a lot of stores that are closing, and he's saying there's just so much space out there. He goes, this is going to be a complete disaster. Take that, take the real estate market, combine them both. This is going to be a complete disaster. When this thing comes down, the real estate market is going to bring everything else down. And it's going to be a complete and utter disaster because it's connected to construction, to lumber, to the electrician, to asphalt, to steel, to you name it. It is connected to almost everything. Home furnishing, Home Depot, Lowe's, all these stores, it's all going to come to a screeching halt. And this is what we see right now. We see the cracks. We've been watching the cracks, and they're spreading apart, and the economy is imploding on itself. And then we need to remember the Fed is out there telling us that they're going to unwind their balance sheet, which we know this is really not going to happen because they've been adding to their balance sheet. Actually, what's unwinding is the economy. They also talked about inflation, and the other Fed houses talked about inflation, and they came up with different calculations saying that inflation was much higher than the Fed's calculation. And actually, Janet Yellen came out and said, listen, we really don't know much about inflation or employment. And she actually admitted this. And during this period of time, we see the U.S. dollar is dropping. It dropped something like 10% this year, and it's continually dropping. And this tells us that there's an inflationary storm headed our way. And as we can see, there are many, many countries moving away from the dollar. And once these countries use a different currency to pay for the oil, countries out around the world don't have to use the dollar anymore to pay for oil because they'll use a different currency to pay for oil. That means that dollar is going to flood back to the United States. And this is what we're seeing. This is the beginning stages of this. This is what we're watching right now. Now, we talked about this for a very long time. We knew it was going to eventually come. Here it is today. It is headed our way. And you're going to see things start to creep up in cost. That means the value of the dollar is decreasing because there's more dollars in circulation, which means more dollars you'll need more dollars to pay for that good that is being sold to you. And you're going to start to see food creep up. You're going to start to see everyday products creep up. You're going to start to see all these things start to creep up a little bit at a time. And then all of a sudden, everyone's going to wake up one day and say, well, why is bread $9? Why am I paying, $6 for a can of beans? Why is coffee $20-something? This makes no sense whatsoever. And it's going to spread across the country. People are going to start to realize that we have an inflationary problem here. And then people are going to start to worry. People are going to say, okay, you know what? I better stock up, because once they go out and they purchase these items and they see, a couple days later or weeks later that the prices have gone up again, they're going to start hoarding these items, because they're starting to realize, and this happened in Weimar, Germany, and many other countries, where people would see the price of goods. They would see meat, all of a sudden went up like $2 or $3 in a couple of days. So they say, something, I better buy this now, because my currency is going to be worth less in a couple of days or a couple of weeks than it is now. So let me get what I need right now. And we're going to see this happen. It's going to creep up, and people are going to be completely shocked. This is why we've been saying get prepared and ready. All the things that we've been talking about, everything that we've been showing, well, they're all starting to come into play, and they're all starting to creep in now. And you're going to see this accelerate as we move along. And this is why you need to have food, you need to have supplies, you need to have water. Get it now, because it's kind of cheap right now. Just like precious metals is very cheap right now. But what happens when the dollar continually decreases? Gold, silver, especially when they lose the ability to manipulate, that is going to increase in price. And we can see right now we're headed in that direction, because we can see with gold and silver, it's becoming harder and harder to keep the price down. It continually moves up a little bit at a time. So at this point, you should be looking at what the economy is doing, not the statistical numbers that the government is putting out there, not what the Fed is telling us, because they're telling us the opposite of what's really happening. We need to be ready and prepared for what is coming, because we can see what is happening out in the Middle East. We can see the plan to capture and control the natural resources. That is failing. This is just common sense. I mean, if the petrodollar is no longer used on oil, where does it go? I mean, the countries don't need it. And this is what we're seeing play out right now. And this is why you need to be ready and prepared.